And we are live. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Day 2 of the big burnout conversation. The traction and conversations are already absolutely amazing. So I want to thank everybody that is taking part. As you know, this is a topic that is extremely close to my heart. And I absolutely believe that we can banish burnout. We do not have to be experiencing this. I've recently, well, about an hour ago, I think, also put a post on my LinkedIn about how bad bosses are contributing to burnout, and that's getting a lot of comments. So after this next conversation, I will go back in and check in on all of that. And a huge shout out to Laura Ash, who joined us yesterday. It's her birthday today. And if you want to go and find her profile, she has got the burnout assessment tool, and there's also a new ebook, so you can go and access all of that today. And Michelle and I will be posting and sharing all of those resources as we go through. And again, we'll be putting everything on the Big Burnout Conversation page on the website. So that's kind of where we are so far. Thank you all for allowing us to flood your social media feeds this week. Michelle and I kind of sorry, not sorry for doing so. This is a topic that we have to talk about. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing with my next guest, who will be joining me on stage in just a moment. I am now going to be talking to Kate Jenkinson, and Kate is going to be sharing with us really her experience of burnout. And the burnout that she went through several times in her HR career, how she then recovered and managed to keep progressing in her HR career in different roles. She then discovered that writing and poetry helped her, and she finally set up her own business. And realizing that her own neurodivergence was behind burnout has really helped her make peace with what has happened and ignited her passion for neuro-inclusive cultures and awareness of how neurodivergence, put my teeth in, shows up in HR too. So I'm going to bring Kate to the stage. And again, for those of you that have been watching, you will see that my fabulous co-star, Michelle Hartley, has also had some great feedback about her neurodivergence in her courses. So we're getting there with it all. Hey, Kate, how are you?
I'm very well. I'm having a great day because today, Kelly, is Poetry at Work Day. So happy Poetry at
Lovely.
Work Day.
Happy Poetry at Work Day. Is that keeping you busy?
Yep, I've just come back from a networking event. Well, of course, I've informed everyone it's Poetry at Work Day,
Of
and
course.
I've been wished happy Poetry at Work Day back, which is just a delight. So, yes, I'm having a good start to the day.
There we go, everybody. Poetry at Work Day. I'm sure. So, Kate, have you got stuff on your own profiles about all of that today as well?
Yep, I've just posted a piece that I wrote this morning about coaching and poetry. So, yes, I have always got something on there, Kelly.
Amazing. Right, go check out Kate's profile once you finish this conversation. Obviously, we don't want you leaving this conversation, but once we're done, go and check out Kate's profile. So, Kate, thank you very much for joining us. So, just before we kind of dive into what I've said we're going to be talking about, I suppose, so how you, I suppose you said, kind of recognized the impact that neurodivergence was having, how that was contributing to your burnout, kind of how you came through it.
Yeah.
Before we do that, just give us a little bit of background. Who is Kate? What do you do?
Okay, so for much of my career, I was an HR professional, working in manufacturing and engineering, life sciences. Reason being that my first foray into the professional world was as a research scientist. So I ended up working in those industries in HR. And yeah, I didn't realize that I was neurodivergent until probably the last year or two. Um, as the social media just became very vocal about what neurodiversity is. And suddenly lots of pennies dropped, and I realized this made sense of what had been happening in my career as well.
Amazing, thank you. And do you mind sharing? So, when you talk about neurodivergence, what are you particularly talking about?
So, I mean, everyone's got a different flavour of neurodiversity. I mean, everybody, let's just be, this doesn't exclude anybody. We've all got brains that think, and the way that they think is different. And throughout my career, honestly, I noticed this, and I was fascinated in how we engaged people. So it showed up even though I didn't have the words for it.
Mm.
And as a poet who loves words, when I noticed these new words in my socials, I was like, oh, neurodiversity. That's like biodiversity, and I'm a biologist. This
Yeah.
is really good. So I adopted the label neurodivergent because whenever I'd done any personality profiling, I was always at the extremes.
Mm.
And for me, I think that's if you're a person in HR, you can recognize those personality traits, the
Yeah.
people who are extra colorful or the people who are really sensitive. And, that's people at the extremes are those neurodivergent brains. So I liked those people. I could, without realizing I was one of them. um, and so, yeah, neurodivergent to me means whatever flavor of unusual traits your brain has. I recognize mine are probably ADHD and definitely aphantasia, which is an unusual one. Um, but it means I don't make images in my mind's eye. So, as a poet, people go, how do you write poetry then? And I go, because it's the sound. It's the sound of the poet speaking that really connects with my brain.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you. There's so much I want to kind of dig into there. And I think, and just to everybody that's watching, if you have questions for Kate, do pop them in the comments. We want to be able to answer as much as we can today. This is your time. If you're giving up your time to watch us, if you've got questions, get those in the comments, and we'll do our very best to get those answered for you. But I think I can definitely relate to that, and particularly what you were saying about the personality profiles, right? I am always at completely different ends of the spectrum. Every single psychometric test or personality profile that I have ever done throughout my career, I'm like 1% of the population.
Yes.
But I think I also recognized, I wonder if this was the same for you. I think because I recognized my extremes and I recognize this kind of 1%, actually for a lot of my in-house career, whether this contributed to burnout or not is still,
I know what you're going to say.
And I was always, and I now live with bipolar as a result of my burnout. Was that something that was there already? Who knows?
Yeah.
But I always noticed, being that 1%, being that different person, I was always the one that felt like I had to mask or fit in or change what I was doing to then try and fit in with 99% of the population. Do you think that was kind of common for you?
Absolutely, because I had to learn how to be a good corporate citizen.
Yeah.
Because whenever I did things the way my brain wanted to do it, people used to say, well, you're cheating, you are doing it wrong, you're breaking the rules. And it's like, well, explain the rules to me, because I don't intuitively understand them.
Yeah.
And that's why I was attracted to HR, because I wanted to understand the rules. I wanted to understand the processes. I wanted to get it right. I'm a scientist, for crying out loud. I want this method to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything about my training was about trying to find the right way to do things, because apparently the way I did it was not right.
And again, that's quite interesting. So I suppose I saw the rules, but actually through my in-house days, I was always the one that was the rebel and the rule breaker, because I would be like, why have we got this ridiculous policy? Like, there's a better way to do it.
I know.
Yeah.
I have to admit, now I'm not in the corporate world, I would find a way to gently break the rules and then write it into the policy. So I used to have a phrase, because I'm a poet, I've always got a phrase. It was legitimize the need. So there's a need to do something differently here. Let's legitimize it, because we're very good at criminalizing things that are unusual or not the norm, and we don't have to. We can actually legitimize them if we want to.
Yeah.
So I spent a long time writing, without realizing it, diversity into the policies that I was creating as an HR professional.
Yeah, amazing. To include everybody, right?
Yeah, I tried. I had the belief that if we tried hard enough, we could find a win-win for everybody. It's just that, and if you don't try, then you can't say that you've been inclusive. So yeah, very passionate about that.
Amazing. Me too. I think 2002 was when I became like really, I'm going to say passionate and probably quite fixated on kind of individualism in the workplace. Like, how could we literally identify what every person needed and
Yes,
how we, to the very best of our abilities, meet the needs of all of our people, rather
exactly.
than saying, if you do not fit into this box, we're going to discipline you, or we're
Yeah,
going to kick you out, or we're going to say that you're not good enough. I was like, no, no,
no,
there's got to be a different way.
I
So
agree. Yeah,
I think what, and maybe I think Michelle and I have spoken about this before, but I think actually what I'm really loving is that everybody that we're speaking to as part of this conversation is also kind of on the same wavelength. And I think in some ways, right, that shows that we find our people,
yeah,
right? And a lot of the time in organizations, we are still recruiting like for like, because
yep,
that's kind of where we go with it. But we do have to make an effort
yep,
to attract a more diverse pool, to
yeah,
include a more diverse pool, to make sure that we're giving everybody what they need within the workplace.
yeah. I agree completely with that, and then go beyond it, Kelly, to say, and it's not just about getting those people into the workplace, it's then about creating an environment that doesn't exhaust them, that doesn't expect them to work twice as hard to
Mm,
achieve similar outcomes. Because that's what I always felt I was doing. I was operating at, I've got the words for it now, a neurotypical level of expectations, but I couldn't turn off who I was. So I was
mm,
also bringing that into the workplace as well. So all the beliefs I have around inclusion and creativity, I was making those important, as
mm,
well as the agenda of results focus, quality focus, efficiency. So that's really, really hard to do that for a sustained period of time. And I think my cycle was 18 months of being able to go in, make incredible changes, and then either get bored, because bore out is just as bad as burnout in my
yeah,
brain.
totally. Yeah, yeah.
I'd get
Can
really
relate.
bored very quickly. And I can remember once going into the MD's office going, I'm just really bored right now. Have you got any inspiration? And he must be the only manager in my career who went, yeah, when I'm in this situation, I usually rely on the poem by Rudyard Kipling. And I went, oh. So he then sent me off to read a poem to regain my inspiration. And I think if anyone knew me well, he obviously did. So
Yeah.
incredible. And I'm not going to name him because he'll get big headed.
You got to tell us the poem, because I think I'm thinking of If.
If, if.
Was it?
It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
If. Yeah, it was completely that poem. And that poem has kind of appeared quite a lot in my journey to becoming a coach. So
Mm,
my first coach quoted that poem in a networking event, and I thought, I want him to be my coach. And he was my
yeah.
first. He was a senior HR leader at AstraZeneca. So he had the background commercially and professionally, but was also using poetry creatively and coaching. So all of that is what's important for me, to be engaged and to not burn out or bore out in workplaces. So yeah.
Amazing. And what difference, Kate, we'll come on to your kind of your own personal experience in a moment and kind of how you came through it. But what difference do you think that manager, that MD made in being able to relate to you in that way? How do you think that helped you?
It was trust. It was trust. And you know when people say belonging, and
Mm,
you're, if you're a neurodivergent person, you think fitting in is belonging until you realize it's the complete opposite.
yeah.
In hindsight, it was he valued me for me, and he was able to attract a diverse team of senior leaders. I mean, there was a heck of a lot of conflict, but then the creativity came from that, and he could hold that space for everybody. So when you have a leader like that at the most senior position in an organization, you've got stability in your team, but you've got high performance, you've got creativity, you've got innovation. And I've lived it, and it was a fantastic organization that won awards for the best training programs and that kind of thing. So yeah, you really get high performance and you
Mm,
enjoy it, you know.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, you would get big-headed if I said his name.
We won't do that then. He'll know who he is though if he sees it, right?
If he sees it,
He'll
he'll
know
know, and
who you're
so
talking
will
about.
my connections who were on that same leadership team.
Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing. So can you talk to us about your kind of your experience? So burnout, and again, I think it's important to kind of note here, lots of us, and this is part of what we're kind of trying to educate on this week, there is a difference between feeling a bit burnt out, a bit exhausted and a bit tired, and actually experiencing burnout. And I'm going to keep reiterating that in every single conversation that we have this week.
yeah,
From your own experience, what did that burnout look like for you? And you mentioned, we mentioned in your kind of introduction that this was a repeating cycle.
yeah.
So just kind of talk to us what was going on for you at that time.
So, I at that time had two. Still have got two children, but they were young children, and I was a working parent, and my husband was the house husband. So I got a family dynamic that was really um, active, and I got no rest, if you like. I'm an introvert, so I need downtime, and I wasn't getting it. Um, I was in a workplace that uh, didn't want me to be honest. And part of my neurodivergent brain is, how can I be anything but? I don't know what kind of, I don't know how to not be honest.
Mm,
So I was told I was too kind, too nice, and too honest. Um, was nowhere to go from that, is there, if that's your personality?
mm,
And that organization promoted me into a position. It was my first HR director role, and then restructured around me. So I tried my hardest to be successful in that role, and burnout for me was a complete. It's a flat line.
mhm,
I had no emotions, and bear in mind I'm a very sensitive, emotional person. And when I left that organisation, I used the EAP service to go get some counselling, and she asked me what brought me joy, and I looked at her and went, What do you mean? What bring? What kind of question is that?" And I was shocked at myself for not being able to answer that question, because it showed me that I'd given all of my personality, everything. I'd given everything away, and I
mm,
got nothing left for me. Um, and that was the time that I set up a business, a creative business, I think. No, it wasn't then. No, it was the second time. That was the second time I burnt out after I'd learned. I think I started going back to poetry workshops and writing workshops.
mhm.
So when I thought, I don't want that to happen again. What am I missing? And I noticed it was the writing, and it was the reflection,
Is that
and
because you were looking for that joy? You were looking for that way to
yeah,
kind of help you feel again and be yourself again?
exactly that. Yes. So it's a story that I tell when I kind of do some talks on this subject now, and I tell that story. She gave me this flip chart piece of paper and went, fill that with the things that bring you joy. And I went, nothing. I couldn't think of anything. But by the time I'd finished, there was a connection. I'd put poetry, I'd put theatre, I'd put I don't know, I like Scrabble, so there was connection around the writing and the
Yeah.
words and the creativity and the performance. And at that time, it was the face-to-face workshops in libraries that I went to that really, really helped me
Mhm,
regain my centre, become more centered around what mattered to me. Um, so yeah, that was the first experience I had, and the support that I got through an EAP. I love EAPs for the value that they can bring. I think they're
mhm.
underappreciated in organisations.
And do you think you would have got help from elsewhere if that EAP hadn't been available to you?
Hmm. Um, I would have. So my mum is a counsellor,
Okay.
so that really helps. So she would have probably signposted me or guided me to some kind of talking therapy of that kind.
Mhm.
So I would have done, Kelly, but I wouldn't know how I would have got to it easily or
Yeah.
professionally. Um, so I think, I mean, I learned from that. After that, every organization I joined, if it didn't have an EAP, I made sure we got one.
Yeah.
I made sure
Just
we
to help
got one
everybody.
and we used it, and we took the stats from them to kind of inform our
Mhm.
HR practices. So, I became very passionate about that service thereafter.
And can I just ask, so again, you mentioned your mum there being a counsellor.
Yeah.
Certainly what I notice within myself, and a lot of my one-to-one clients also kind of see the same, is that actually if people had said, like, and everybody was saying to me, like, Kelly, something has to change, right? And nobody was
Mm,
using the word burnout,
no.
but it was like, something's not right, you need to change something, you need to fix something. I was still absolutely convinced that there was nothing wrong with me, right? This was
Oh,
just
yeah.
part of working at that level,
Yes.
earning that
Yes.
salary, doing the job. This was just something that we went through.
Yeah.
So did you have people at that time saying to you, like, Kate, there's an issue, or were you just masking it so
I
brilliantly
didn't
that
have any
nobody
friends,
saw
Kelly. I
it
didn't have time for friends.
because you were
So
just putting everything
I
into
was
one?
commuting from Manchester to Milton Keynes, which is not a commute, but I was doing
No, I
that.
was gonna say that's a travel and a half.
Yeah. So that was the travel was adding to the burnout.
Yeah,
Um, what happened later in my career? No, I just thought it was part of the career
yeah,
that,
part of the
these
job. Yeah.
part of the job that you needed to learn how to man up.
Mhm.
Oh, no, I don't like that phrase at all. Um, and it was my husband who was the people closest to you. He said, "You've stopped again in later
Mm.
burnouts. Kate, you've stopped laughing. You're somebody who loves to have a laugh, who's kind of fun to be around, and
Yeah.
you're not enjoying yourself." And I know I never listened to him. So
So you
my
you kind of shrugged that one off. Yeah.
no, my solution to that was to join a stand-up comedy course. I thought, well, I'll find the humour.
Yeah. Okay. Action oriented, right?
And
Again, that's one
well,
thing that happens when we get into burnout.
yeah, I guess
Yeah.
so. Yeah. So no, I struggle to find that external measure of I've
Mhm.
gone across that boundary again,
Yeah.
or because what I did put in place was I knew that I loved creativity. Maybe this contributed to future burnout. So I'd do my corporate work, and then I'd do workshops, and I'd do other stuff that was creative.
That was
So
a definite split for you, was it? So it wasn't like creativity could be part of the role. You
not
actually felt that you had to split them?
Yeah, not when I was in the corporate role as such, although I was the person that would, put a poem in the lift, to inspire people, and
Yeah,
I'd do stuff like that anyway, because I love to see it in my environment.
yeah.
And I would be creative because one of the benefits and strengths of being neurodivergent is you can solve problems
Mhm.
relatively quickly. So you
Yeah.
solve the problem, but then you've got to sell the solution to the problem. So then that's another way of developing the narrative storytelling. So I was using the skills that are what I'm using now as a business poet. I was developing and honing them, at the
Mm,
coal face, if you like. So yeah.
amazing. So burnout number 1, you
Yeah.
started to kind of seek your joy again, but you
Yes.
then end up in another burnout.
Yeah, so a bit more sort of career enhancing though, because um, I moved into an organization where I had some tremendous experiences of how to engage people.
Mhm.
Engagement was like top of the agenda then, it was
Yeah.
the buzzword. Um, and I just thought, yeah, this is something I can really get behind. So I had 3 years of really enjoying creating a talent strategy and engagement strategy. Da, 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 da. And then things just kind of, I think it was people didn't understand me,
Mhm.
and there was a disconnect that I couldn't understand either. And I think when you're neurodivergent, you experience these moments where people think, I can't trust Kate. You're thinking, but I don't know why you can't trust me.
Mhm.
My values are inclusion and diversity and honesty and etc. what's not to trust about that? So there seems to have always been at some point a disconnect between me and significant people in organisations, which is sad. And that prompts burnout, because then I slip into people pleaser mode and try to make them like, understand,
Yeah.
connect with me, and it's hard. I can't sustain it.
And go into that
Um,
trying to fit in.
yeah, trying to fit
Yeah.
in, trying to people please, and I've learned now. Um, there's a coach, we talk about fight and flight, but there's fawn and freeze, and
Mm.
those were my coping survival strategies. I would fawn, which means I would try and fit in, people please, or I would freeze, and I wouldn't. And for someone who's action oriented and wants to make a difference, I couldn't understand what was going on, that I just wasn't able to get stuff done. But there were survival mechanisms, really. And in hindsight, I don't blame people who saw my responses and thought, she's not performing, she's
Mhm.
lost it, she's not at the same level that she was, because fawn and freeze don't work.
Mm.
Um, as you might want them to in a high performance culture.
Yeah. Do you also, because you mentioned earlier about the fact that you're an introvert. Again, I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And also what you said about your husband being the household. I grew up with that. So my mum went out to work. My dad was the one that stayed at home and kind of looked after us. So we've got lots of things in common.
Yeah.
I think also as an introvert, and I don't know if you kind of experience the same, introversion, particularly throughout like my in-house career, introversion wasn't something that we associated with great leadership, because
No,
we
that's right.
seem to say that, in order to be a great leader, right, you need to be extroverted, or you
Mhm.
need to have extrovert behaviors. So we don't necessarily recognize introversion as a skill or strength in any kind, it seems,
Yeah.
in the corporate workplace, and definitely when it comes to leadership.
Yes.
Do you think that was also your introversion? I suppose there's two sides to this, isn't there? What you would have needed as an individual
Mm.
in order for you to be able to recharge on your own and do your own thing,
Yep.
but also then internally, as a leader, as a professional, potentially being like the only introvert in a sea of extroverts. And then, of course, because of course we know things like decision making are done very differently. We know
Yeah.
communication, listening. There's like every single skill
Yeah.
in
It
terms of
it
introversion, extroversion is opposite. So there's two sides of the coin there. But do you think introversion played a part in
massive.
all of that for you?
Massive. So I thought it was all to do, because I was usually the only female in a leadership team, and I
Yes,
thought,
same. Yeah.
only female, introvert, and I thought that answered the why I didn't fit. But it wasn't the only dimension. Clearly, there've been other things. But introversion, when I understood it, so it played out in so many different ways. So in a leadership team, if you're silent, then it's yes. Well,
Mm,
it's not actually. It's processing time for an
yeah.
introvert. And guess
Yeah.
what? Because I've got a creative mind, I'm going to find a better solution than the one I committed to in the leadership team meeting,
Yeah.
which is where I realized people were saying they couldn't trust me because I wouldn't take the action I'd said I was going to take in the meeting, because I had a better idea,
Mm,
the next day. And it's because we only just brought the issue forward in that meeting, didn't give us
yeah.
any thinking time before the meeting. So as I learned more about introversion, I started to construct leadership meetings that had thinking spaces in them, that had
Mm,
time for people to build collaborative solutions. So I actually learnt to use introversion in a positive way. And I think for a long time that was my language of why I was different. But of course, there are so many things I've
mm,
learnt about recently. But yeah, it played a huge part of being misunderstood, um, being seen as, I guess, not trustworthy in
mm.
certain ways. And yeah, massive. Thinking about it now. Just
Do you think so? I want to come on to kind of your business in a moment, and kind of how that has helped you not only
mm,
come through the burnout, but potentially kind of being able to identify some of this stuff in others.
yeah.
But if you were to be able to kind of go back and say, not necessarily, well, maybe to the organization that you were in, but to every organization that's out there, if we were looking to be more inclusive of everybody, understand more about neurodivergence and the need for inclusion around that space, but also when it comes to banishing burnout,
Mm-hmm.
what would you say to leaders? What do you think, or let's kind of rephrase that, what do you think would have been of benefit to you within your organization to help prevent the burnout and to help you to be, if that was the place that you were meant to stay, what could they have done differently to help you at that time?
Cool, that's a massive question. And I think I always used to have this yearning for space. So for me, it was creating spaces, and I don't mean like, oh, there's you can hot desk there. No, I need to know I have a space. I
Yeah.
can't hot desk. That uncertainty of not knowing what my space will be like. And that space needed to be, I was lucky in that when I had an office space as a senior leader, I got what I needed.
Mhm.
In some respects, I could go into that space, I could get downtime, I could reflect, I could think,
Mm.
and it was important. So I had this yearning though for different types of spaces, so that wasn't enough. I needed creativity as well, and I needed to have opportunity to speak with like minds. So, what organisations are doing now, having employee resource groups for neurodivergent associates, that would have been something that would have helped me. I
Mhm.
was lucky as a senior leader. I used to walk round and do management by walkabout, but I used to stop by the desks of what clearly were probably neurodivergent folks and have a good old heart to heart, mind to mind conversation, a laugh, a joke, whatever. And that was really enriching and energizing for me. So, create those opportunities to connect in that way. That was important. Um, and just not judge the
Mm.
fact that people need time to think something through, to have a considered opinion, and that silence is actually really important.
Mm.
Processing time for those who are introverted and neurodivergent. So, yeah, that would have
Amazing. Thank
helped.
you. Yeah, thank you.
And of course, poetry.
There's lots of poetry lifts and walls and everything. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely. But I think again, and I think you touch on some really interesting points there. So I know throughout my career, like open plan offices,
Oh
I mean,
dear,
and everybody says, it's well, it helps with collaboration. You think, well, again,
doesn't.
if you are a person that operates in that space, then it may do. But actually, for the likes of you and I, no. Like my word, and I'm the same as you. And some people are like, why are you getting so protective about a desk?
Mm,
It's like, because like again, the sheer panic of, will I get a desk, where will I be sat, will it be right, all of those things can send me
yeah,
into a frenzy before I even walk into the, even like the night before, like, will I get a desk,
yes,
will I get a desk, will I get a desk?
yeah,
And yeah, and I think the space is so important, again, for downtime, for breathing time, for processing. And
yeah,
also what you said there about the meetings, again, I think we assume that everybody that agrees or disagrees in a meeting is absolutely the right thing, but actually lots of people are, well, if I'll wait and see what Kate says, and then I'll probably agree with Kate, or I'm gonna wait and see what Kate says, and then I'm just going to disagree.
yeah.
And I don't think enough of us realize that actually a lot of those decisions that are made on the spot without that consideration time are not the best decisions,
No, they're
because
not.
everybody does feel the pressure
Yeah,
to make that choice. But actually, those that are being vocal in the meeting are probably just saying what they think needs to be said anyway. Whereas actually, those of us that sit purposefully quietly, and so actually, because we need the processing time, again, like, we're not being difficult, we're not being challenging, we're not agreeing or
no,
disagreeing, we're saying, I haven't got a choice. I'm not at that decision yet.
yeah. I and since kind of helping coach people who are quite introverted in meetings, it's like signpost what's happening. So I guess self coaching. I would have said to myself, um, just say in the meeting, look, this is a really important agenda
Mm.
topic. I really need some time to think about this. I've suggested one idea now, but I know that I'll have a different
Mm,
perspective tomorrow, because my brain works on stuff overnight. Everybody's
yeah,
brain does actually.
yeah,
Um, that's when we solve our problems. That's why I think we're most creative in the shower, because we've been, if you
yeah,
shower in the morning, you've
yeah,
been processing it overnight, and suddenly you like have your best ideas, don't
yeah,
you? So,
absolutely.
or walking in nature, it's like you never have your best ideas round a boardroom table. That's my
No,
opinion.
no.
So, yeah,
Amazing. So through you've gone through burnout.
yeah.
At what point then did you think I need something completely different? What made you kind of think corporate life is no longer for me? I've
Oh,
got to kind of do more of my own stuff.
yeah. Just, slap bang in the pandemic when it was just the best time to really go full time into your own business.
Obviously,
That's
yeah,
when my
yeah,
my
obviously.
brain went, had enough.
That's where I left my consultancy that I'd set up and then went like on my own. So
Yeah,
again,
yeah.
I'm kind of with you on that one as well.
I think I've had my business now in my 8th year. So uh, I think I was 5 years into my business, and what happened was, if you're somebody who runs your own business, it's really difficult when you start out to kind of niche or to decide what your so you try and do everything. And so I was coaching, I was doing HR consultancy, I was doing interim roles. I ended up 2 years back in a corporate role. And the reason for that was the well-being of my family. I put their well-being first,
Yeah.
which was the right thing to do. But basically, I burnt out in those two
Mhm.
years, and was fair not performing at the level I needed to. I'm not sure many HR people in 2020 were having their best lives. Just it
So,
was impossible. So,
mhm.
not surprisingly, I went in my brain, look, and once it said something to me, I can't ignore it. It said, "I'm fed up playing these games.
Okay.
It actually said, I'm too old to play these games anymore. Life is too short and too important. Now you've got to make it work for you." It just so happened it was a birthday month as well. And honestly, I've not looked back from that time, Kelly. I suddenly, with renewed confidence, decided this is going to work. If I'm going to work this hard, and I was working so hard during the pandemic lockdowns, etc. If I'm
Yeah.
going to work this hard, I can do it for myself in my own business and make a bigger difference than I'm making here. And that's what motivated me. And it took me 2 years to then get to a level where I was replicating the salary that I was taking at a most corporate level, senior level job I had, but with greater work-life balance, the ability to incorporate creativity and poetry in what I do, and yeah, just living my best life now.
Amazing.
Feel apologetic, but I am, and I believe other people can too.
And when you say you feel apologetic, where's that come from? I don't want this to turn into a huge coaching session, but again, I think it's interesting for
Isn't it? Isn't
people.
it? I feel
Yeah,
apologetic because it's like, I'm really sorry. Your way of telling me how to do life doesn't work. My way of doing life works for me.
yeah,
So it's an apology to everybody who's tried to correct my rebellious maverick ways in the past.
yeah,
I'd never wear a hat to work. If I turned up wearing this, people go, "She's a bit quirky and a bit weird, isn't she?" It's like, yes, I am. I mean, look at my hats behind me here. I've got
yeah. I can
loads.
see them. Yeah, yeah,
So, yeah, I am, and I like colours, and I like, I don't know, I just like having a laugh, and
mhm.
sometimes that wasn't appropriate in the workplace as well, particularly in HR.
And
But I
how
know you disagree with
being
that. Sorry, go on.
no, 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 I was going to say, how do you think being you, and you've apologized for it. I'm going to say unapologetically though.
Unapologetically me.
How do you think that has helped you, I suppose, avoid another burnout, but also be the success that you are now creating for yourself?
Okay, so being me, I've now got strategies that work for me. So when I don't get burnt out now, but I do get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I notice the overwhelm. I notice the overwhelm when I'm not doing the things that I want to do. And of course, when you've got ADHD, that happens quite often. Um, I have a strategy as a writer. I will get a blank piece of paper, lined piece of paper, and I'll just stream of consciousness write whatever comes out of my brain. Because usually, if you are inattentive ADHD, there's a lot going on in that brain, and sorting through it is really difficult. So you have to externalize it, and writing is my way of getting everything out on a page. And as an introvert, again, it works. I see it on a page, and suddenly I've got clarity about what I need to do next. So I've got strategies that now work for me. And I learned that strategy through creative coaching courses and through writing. And I'll write a poem.
And you
I'll
write
write a cool.
Excuse me, sorry, I'm still overcoming this very bad chest infection, so apologies.
Oh,
I nearly made it through to the end without a cough, so we'll take that. We'll take that as a congratulations. So yeah, so finding ways that work for you to help you deal with the overwhelm, which was then hopefully going to prevent another burnout.
Yeah, the thing that I haven't found a solution for yet is the structure and the organization that I need. So I do use structure. I'm organized if it's client focused, but stuff for me, I still struggle with that. So I've still got I'm still on that journey of acceptance and creating strategies that work for me unapologetically.
Yeah, unapologetically. Thank you. And I do think that is a good point, because I think, again, lots of people assume that kind of once we've come through this stuff, that everything just works, right? I'm 10 years out of my first burnout, and I'm still finding different ways, different solutions. And again, like we're constantly evolving anyway, right? So we need to keep tweaking and keep changing. But I'm going to make the assumption, Kate, that the one thing that's definitely going to stay with you is the poetry.
I have a phrase, poetry is my soul speaking, and finally I'm listening. And I think, poetry has the potential to create soul, human-centered organizations. So I'm never going to not listen to the poetry. I'm never not going to listen to my soul.
I love that. Thank you. What a beautiful way to end. Thank you so much for joining me. For everybody that is watching, whether you're watching live, whether you're listening to the replay, whether you're watching the replay, Kate's website is nextstephr.co.uk. Do also head over to Kate's LinkedIn profile. We're going to find some poetry. As we said, it's Poetry at Work Day. Go over, connect with Kate, follow Kate, look at the poetry, look at everything that you can do. Get creative. Right?
Yes.
Get creative. Kate, any final thoughts before we say goodbye? And I wish you well for the rest of your poetry day.
No. Normally I do have good final words, but I guess I just want to thank you, Kelly. I've really enjoyed the conversation. I think you're doing fabulous profiling different ways to deal with burnout. So thank you.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for being a part of it. I think Michelle and I, as we know, can talk for England all week, but I think the fact that we've got lots of different voices is definitely helping. So thank you so much for being a part of it. I really appreciate it. To those of you that are watching, joining, sharing, again, thank you very much. Keep sharing anything that you share with the hashtag The Big Burnout Conversation. Tag myself or Michelle. We need to get as much of this message out as possible. I've definitely found this conversation with Kate useful. I hope all of you have too. So get sharing, get connecting, get following, and let's do everything that we can to banish burnout. I'm going to be back with you all very, very soon for our next guest. But for now, Kate, thank you very much again for joining us. Thank you, everybody, for watching and listening and joining. And I'll see you all again soon. Take care for now.
Bye.
Bye.